So, our speaker, our final speaker of the decade, mate, of the decade, is Mr. Paul Ince. Paul Ince is a good friend of mine. He runs a little agency, runs one of the best marketing events on the planet, MarketEd.Live. You did a little pitch earlier in the year, didn't you, at one of the events? And he's going to share his thoughts on silence. Mr. Paul Ince, ladies and gentlemen.
Morning. I feel like a teacher, like with this setup. I am really bad at staying silent, but I thought this would be a really useful time to explore exactly what we mean by silence. What is it? Because there's lots of different things that I think we could take from that. But when I told people that I was going to do a talk about silence, well, quite a lot of people said, well, that's easy, really, because all you've got to do is just not say anything for 20 minutes. And that would be a bit of a cop-out, I think, but you know, in a sort of creative, arty way, that would kind of work, wouldn't it? You know, it's kind of some postmodernist piece on silence, just not saying anything for 20 minutes, maybe some performance art or something like that. But that's not what I'm going to do, because I just thought that I would go and explore some of this stuff. Now, when people do a talk, often people will start off by giving some credibility. You know, they'll say, oh, this is who I am, and I'm a doctor of silence, and you know, these are all the papers that I've written on silence, and all this kind of stuff. But I'm really not able to do that because I'm not a scientist, I'm not an anthropologist, I'm not a psychologist. The only ist that I am is what's on my LinkedIn profile, which is sort of where I wankily describe myself as a marketing strategist. But that's the only ist that I am. So all of this is literally just explorations of ideas, and I understand that there's like questions and stuff at the end, so we can explore some of that for sure. But rather than just have 20 minutes of silence, I think it is important to try and give ourselves some kind of reference point as to what silence is. So as awkward as this is going to be, I want us to spend 30 seconds in silence. But what I want you to do is I want you to try and pay particular attention to everything else that is going on. All right? So let's spend 30 seconds. I'm going to try and time it with a little bit of quiet. That wasn't too bad, was it? Don't breathe this time. Okay, thank God it's over. No, don't hold your breath for 30 seconds. What I found really interesting there was everyone in the venue like suddenly going really quiet. When the door was open there, that lady there just went. All right, so given that we were sort of technically quiet, someone give me some things that maybe they heard or that they picked up on. People walking outside. Could you hear them, or they caught your eye? Yeah. Yeah. I noticed that as well.
Clinking of cups.
Yes, that's a good one.
The squeaky door, which I keep meaning to bring some WD for.
And now you can say it disrupted the whole exercise.
Breathing.
Breathing. Yeah. So you're sort of like hearing yourself a bit more. So I think, you know, we could have done this like super awkward. I could have made you like look into each other's eyes as you did that. So you should be relieved that I didn't do that. But I think what's interesting about when you go silent or when we go quiet, which is really what we mean when we talk about silence in that sense, is that other things kind of become more pronounced and you pick on things. And it's interesting, Hannah, that you said about seeing people, they call your eye, because that's kind of noise too. You know, noise is not necessarily just what we see. Take a look at any road that you travel on, And these days, certainly towards the city centre, and you'll see something like this. Noise, and it's not just audible. There is noise around that is visual. And it always amazes me, like when I look on a road, and I was noticing this the other day. This is not a picture that I took, but I found. But I think it represents what we see now in our lives, is that you'll get signs for everything on a road now. Stop, don't stop, turn left, turn right, don't turn right only. Look at the cycle lane, watch the bikes, watch out for the elderly people. There's some humps down there. We're literally warned about everything. There's so much information that you see on a major road that I kind of think that it's overwhelming, and it feels like we're just being talked to all the time. Even looking out of the window now, we've got signs for what this place is, and the assembly rooms and all this kind of stuff. I don't know, there's just a lot of noise. And silence, I think, becomes quite difficult in our world. There's olfactory noise as well. So the bacon and sausage cobs or baguettes or whatever they are, as you walk in, maybe the smell of coffee, maybe you're in a certain part of town and you get a waft of cooking from the inhabitants there that represent maybe the heritage of where they're from. So all of these things are just other things in our senses that are bombarded at us all the time, and I think it makes us difficult to switch off. Even when we're on our own, it's hard to be silent. This thing is the worst thing in terms of the noise that we have in our lives. The average mobile phone user gets something like 200 notifications on their phone a day. Now, has anyone switched off their notifications on their phone? There's a growing trend for that, but not many. Yeah. Ding, perfect. That was amazing. Thank you for that. But yeah, 200 notifications a day, and that's on average. And so think about how disruptive that is. I can't play this video because it's not working, but next time you open a social media app, try and pay attention to the slight delay between when the app opens and the internal notifications thing that you get. They're purposefully designed to have a delay, and it's to do with that dopamine hit that these notifications give you. When you get a notification, it's to say, look at me, right? And that triggers dopamine in your brain, which makes it enjoyable, which is why you keep coming back. But when you open, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or whatever, you'll open the app, and then it will pop up. And it's a double hit of dopamine, all purposefully designed. These systems, apps, technology, it's all designed to disrupt your life and make you pay attention to them. So it is incredibly noisy. I think we will struggle as a society to get rid of some of this noise. And so therefore, is it possible that silence is really a thing or not? So I found this profound question, does silence actually make a sound? If anyone knows any art, Simon and Garfunkel, obviously they think that there is a sound. But I did a little bit of research on this to find out whether or not silence is technically possible. And it's very complicated. But basically, as you can probably see there, sound is produced when an agent emits energy in the form of a vibration, for example, atoms moving back and forth quickly. So what this basically says is that it's not actually possible. There's no such thing as silence, because if everything's made up of atoms and atoms make a sound, then there can't be silence ever. So if you've got kids, obviously don't give them this information, that there's no such thing as silence. That's something for you to give to them. We were talking about things like Father Christmas and other myths and legends. But yeah, silence, it's not possible. So silence must be something else. So I found this, which is that we as humans have two forms of attention. One is the conscious attention, one is unconscious. And the conscious part of our mind is very linear, it's very sequential, it's orderly. It's what you're using now to interpret what I'm saying and the environment around us to compute and make you understand what it is that we're talking about. But it's very fixed and it's limited as well. Whereas the unconscious is essentially everything else in your brain. It has amazing processing power. It's limitless. It covers both the physical and mental stuff. So it's things like memory. So things like your first day at school or your first kiss, how you felt about that and how that forms the person that you are today. Anyone scared of spiders? One person? You know, if you're scared of spiders, what you're doing is you're putting the current stimulus and associating that with a memory of something that there was an experience of something that you had before. And the unconscious mind, the unconscious network in your part of your brain is all about feelings, habits, and sensations, and emotions. And emotions are a big part of creativity. And so this part of the this part of the mind, the unconscious part, becomes suddenly very important. I also found this. I'm not overly familiar with the work of Freud, but I thought this was a really good visual sort of diagram of how the conscious and the unconscious, and in Freud's case, the preconscious mind, works. You know, these two bits being the bigger part of the mind, the bit that's under the surface. You know, we see what we allow people to see, and this is all going on underneath. And yet, this is the stuff that really matters. This is the stuff that helps us form who we are, helps us form what we put out in our conscious mind and how we portray ourselves to the outside world as well. Now, according to Moran and their colleagues, when the brain rests, it's able to integrate internal and external information into a conscious workspace. And what this means, of course, is that we need to try and quiet that conscious mind a little bit if we're to allow the unconscious part of our mind to come to the fore. And when we're looking at things like that busy road or the busy world around us, all of that noise are blockers that prevent us from really getting our unconscious creative side of our person out there. So it's this noise that we see in society is very limiting. Now, we want some science bits. So anyone guess what this is?
A heart.
It's not a heart. This is a brain. It's the brain of a mouse. I know. Weird shape, right? But in 2013, a study on mice where these mice were exposed to 2 hours of silence every day for a long period meant that these mice actually developed more brain cells in the hippocampus, which is the part of the brain that is all about, you know, cognition and emotion and all of that kind of like cool stuff, including creativity. And so, of course, what this means is that silence actually grows your brain, which I think is pretty cool. So if we're thinking about why we should try and become quieter, then it's, you know, for this reason alone, if we can actually grow our brain, then maybe that's going to be helpful to us. There was also a 2001 study, I can get that date right, where, in fact, yes, all to do with when your brain is resting, that it actually helps, again, external information come more to this conscious part of the mind. So really what we've got to do is sort of listen to the science and say, well, actually, there is scientific reason why silence or trying to quieten the noise is good for us. So how can we use some of this information? How can we use this knowledge to, I don't know, help us be a bit more creative, help some of these inner feelings come to the fore, get rid of some of the noise that we don't like? And I think the thing here is understanding that we have a choice. We can choose to remove some of these noises that we see, whether we do a bit of meditation perhaps, or whether we go on a retreat, or maybe we switch off notifications, or we turn off the telly, or whatever it is. But this is beneficial to us to try and be more reflective, I think, on the world that we live in. Now, does anyone do any meditation here? Is anyone a fan of that? Okay. I've tried it. I can't seem to get on with it. And I do wonder whether it's for everybody or whether everybody can do it. But I do struggle with it. But fortunately, I found this, which is a University of Illinois study, which essentially shows that, well, two things. One is, when you do meditate or when you put yourself in a quiet situation, your brain is stimulated, and it's that unconscious part of the mind that is more stimulated because you've removed some of the noisiness, and so that allows you to come to the fore. But in their study, when the person, the subject, was stimulated somehow by walking, in their case, in terms of the study, that it actually triggered endorphins flowing in the brain. And endorphins are, of course, like your happy hormone, and endorphins also help, again, with cognition and things like that. So I don't know about you, but I do a little bit of physical activity, I go to the gym and stuff like that, and I know that if I've got a problem that I'm trying to solve, a walk or a run or something like that is a great way to resolve something. And it's again because we've removed some of that noise. So I'm now a real advocate of this whole thing about removing noise and being more conscious about that, and really thinking about that conscious part of the brain that is full of noise, where it's a barrier, and trying to find mechanisms whereby we can allow that unconscious part to come to the fore. And it's important because I found this online. I don't know if you've ever heard of this chap here, but if you know Tim, you know he does many musings online, and this one was from a couple of weeks ago at the beginning of the month, and I just thought this is perfect. Actually, this is a perfect example of why this whole thing is important. Creativity makes what you sell valuable. If there's no creativity in your offer, what you sell is a commodity. There's little value in the middle of the market. If we're too busy dealing with the transactional stuff, if we react to the noise, the distraction of life, we restrict our creativity. We restrict our ability to have our own thoughts and feelings and our own development. And I really believe that every one of us has the potential to be creative, to do things differently. In my line of work, I see a lot of different creative efforts. And I think what frustrates me more than anything is when I see sort of regurgitation, same sorts of things, same formula, people saying the same thing. Whether that's, in my case, it might be that we see people saying, oh, if you post a Facebook post at this time of day, then this will happen. There's no creativity there, it's just a formula. We need to come up with our own ideas, and we need to stick our head above the parapet and not be scared. We need to not be scared of what people say or think about us. We just need to try, because some things will work. And your experience is just as valid as everybody else's, and your experience is unique to you. And I think that as individuals, we need to hear more about other people's experience. I think we do live, unfortunately, in a time where other people's experiences and values and opinions can sometimes be shot down a bit. But we need to speak up. We need to say how we feel, and we need to come up with ideas that are potentially different and radical. And if they don't work, that's fine. But if they do work, they could be the best thing ever. And I want to encourage you to have those ideas. I've actually got 3 quotes which I found that, for me, sum up what silence is. and how it can be used and how we as individuals can use it for the benefit of ourselves and also for the benefit of others as well. This from Les Yu. Silence is a great source of strength. I really think that it is, but I don't mean silence as in just not saying anything, although you know that silent look that you give to somebody can say a lot. But by being silent, we give ourselves the space and the permission to think about other things, to think about different ways of doing things. Carl Jung, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. Listen to yourself, have faith and confidence in yourself. You are the strongest part of the argument. Also, just so you know, I get top marks for bringing Jung and Freud in the same presentation, right? And possibly my favourite. I know he didn't write it, but you know, the thought of Ronan Keating being involved in a Creative Mornings presentation was too good to pass up, really. You say it best when you say nothing at all. And like I say, I don't mean not speaking up when you need to, but but taking the time to dampen the noise, taking time out to listen to how you feel, and being confident to project that to others and be more creative. That's all for my musings, but if you want to get your own back and add to my noise, I'm just going to take the opportunity to say you can, these are how you can contact me. So I do like a discussion, particularly if you don't agree. So you can follow me as BizPaul there, and that's my email address, paul@lightmind.media. And as I've just got you here, if you did want to check out our marketing event in Nottingham, then it's MarketEd.Live. Thanks for listening.